Good evening. Tonight, we find the dwarves of Chantedfins already hard at work. As we enter our fortress's 7th year, 556, the fortified wall surrounding the fortress nears completion. The dwarves spent much of the last year cooped up in the fortress, hiding from the undead forces of the mummy king, C.T. Hammerstopped. But with their gift from the gods ready and waiting underground, the true believers of the Ship of Saints have nothing to fear. Blessed by the goddess of death, the dwarves resume their labor with a holy fervor. The scent of rot wafts across the grassland, mixing with the salt sea air. The dead walk. Ceti sends his regards. The tower has even sent the same once-resting goblin axeman who felled Gorno the Cyclops last year. Nguzlu Oxospoza. It looks like we're finally going to see how wasting stalkers fare against once-resting ones. Our civilians rush back to the safety of the walls, while 8-foot the wasting stalker Werelama prepares himself for battle. Thob Mismarul, the young baron, is lagging behind. He is not used to being out in the sun. The undead are distressingly near, but Thob is on the bridge. We need to pull the lever to close up the fort now. If Nguzlu gets in, it'll be a slaughter. The zombies are getting way too close to the bridge. Alright, everyone's safe. It'll be about 3 weeks until the full moon, so we just need to wait until then. Interestingly, most of the attackers here are regular goblins. While 15 of the goblins here are alive, there's only 5 zombies, and of course Nguzlu. Perhaps the mummy entranced their minds with magic, or maybe life under the rule of the Demon King was even worse. In any case, 8-foot's chances are a lot better against regular goblins. The full moon is nearly upon us. We're releasing 8-foot. He charges out across the grassland. He reaches the invaders. He hasn't yet transformed. He's effortlessly striking down the regular goblins, and deftly avoiding their blows. Even Nguzlu can't get any hits in on him. 8-foot is now bashing Nguzlu with his silver mace, easily crushing body parts and breaking apart armor, without taking a scratch. 8-foot is clearly the superior fighter. Nguzlu has been struck down. 8-foot's incredible wasting stalker strength allows him to punch and kick goblins apart without even using his weapon. Tig's blessings, the goblins are all dead, and 8-foot didn't even transform. He's completely unwounded too. I had imagined at least the once resting one would put up a fight, yet even it fell easily. If 8-foot could so effortlessly kill so many on his own, what could possibly stop him? He's unbreakable, unflinching, immortal, the will of Tig the Lustful made flesh. Our champion collects his tribute from the carnage and heads back underground. Returning to the surface, the dwarves begin cleaning up the ever-growing pile of goblin bodies. There's also a lot of armor and equipment these soldiers have been leaving behind. We'll equip the useful stuff and melt down the junk. The miners are digging out a new space next to 8-foot's cell. In his undeath, 8-foot has transcended the need for earthly comforts. But we can't have him residing in some pathetic hole in the ground. These new dwellings will be far more suitable. The dwarves are now quite busy cleaning up the battlefield and getting the fort in order. This will all take time. The dwarves work diligently for the next 2 months. They put the finishing touches on the wall and start setting up another guild hall and a library. But a titanic diversion is developing deep below. For many months, the forgotten beast Snuztrok Unkgosmungo Gungo Azusparstruck has reigned over the upper cavern layer, hunting down all cave creatures it encounters. We've been too busy to deal with the beast, so we've been content to let it do as it pleases. But a challenger has arrived to contest Snuztrok's rule. The forgotten beast Strabostasno Stozbub Nguzlu has come! A towering aureole with lidless eyes. It has large mandibles and it belches and croaks. Beware its deadly spittle. With the upper cavern sealed, Strabostasno is no threat to us right now. But the clashing of 2 flying forgotten beasts? That is a rare sight to behold. Which terror of the caves will emerge victorious? It's anyone's game. But if I were a betting dwarf, I'd throw in with Strabostasno. Snuztrock has been fighting the cavern wildlife down here for months. Though it's not seriously injured, the creature is covered in tiny scars and minor wounds. Strabostazno, on the other hand, is totally uninjured. The bird's spittle also gives it a ranged attack, which could be another advantage. But we have no idea what Snuztrock's noxious secretions do to a creature. Maybe the pterosaur is a bigger threat than we're giving it credit for. Of course, there's only one way to find out. The beasts collide. Feathers fly in a flurry of beak and talon, tooth and claw. Royal blood spills from the kings of the cave. But when the dust settles, a victor crawls away. Snuztrock Onkosmungo Gungo Azusparstruck has put down the newcomer. Though Snuztrock was wounded quite substantially. This gives us an opportunity. With Snuztrock injured, we can send in our military to slay the beast and retake the cave. It's hardly a fitting death after the creature's hard-fought victory, but in the end, the dwarves rule these caves. We're sending in the Pious Blades, one of our newer squads, previously named the Rocks of Speaking. It's made up of 2 spear dwarves wielding artifact spears and 4 axe dwarves. All these soldiers are reasonably competent fighters, but none are very experienced. They need a real target to prove themselves with. Snuztrock's injuries should keep this from getting too dangerous, though. It looks like some of that spittle is affecting the creature too. Its body is covered in blisters. The soldiers prepare to charge out, but Snuztrock is already dead. Between the blood loss, internal blistering, and whatever other effects that spittle might have had, Snuztrock has passed. The Pious Blades will need to prove themselves another day. Snuztrock's corpse was mangled by the creature's wounds, but Strabostazno's body remains intact. This raises certain possibilities. We'll need to investigate this. It took some doing, but we're ready. Both Forgotten Beast corpses were brought all the way up into the fort. Snuztrock's body was used to make some delicious Forgotten Beast intestine sausages, filled with exceptionally minced naked moldog heart, tripe, and sweetbread. But Strabostazno's body is destined for greater things. We've created a new small chamber in the crypt, designed to allow for resurrecting bodies without the necromancer having to get within biting range of the corpses. There's still a risk of spittle hitting the necromancer and causing injury, but this is the only way to continue our experiments. There's also a Gorlak skeleton in the room which might get resurrected as well. That body isn't secured, and could be a danger, but we don't have time to move it. Zasit, our necromancer mayor, is quite emphatic that this is all worth the risk. If we were able to turn a mere dwarf into something as devastating as 8 foot, imagine what we could accomplish with an undead forgotten beast. By order of the mayor, Id prepares to resurrect the forgotten beast. Recall that Id is Zasit's husband, and the only other necromancer in the fortress. Here goes. Success! Strabostazno lives again. We can't really get a good look at the creature stuck inside that cramped room, but it's definitely moving around in there. The Gorlak skeleton has also been raised, though it seems to just be standing around. It is fighting the skeleton, and it's really doing a number on him. We'll try to send in the Gilded Gears to rescue him. Here come the Mace Dwarves. They've taken down the skeleton. It is in a bad way, though I think his necromantic powers make him able to survive severe injuries better than most. He might pull through. Id has been taken back to the hospital and is being treated. There's a lot of damage to repair. He has cuts across all his body, compound fractures, torn tendons and ligaments, torn motor nerves. That skeleton messed him up pretty bad. The docs will be working on him for a while, I imagine. Id's injuries weren't in vain, though. We now have an undead forgotten beast at our beck and call. Well, if we can manage to control it anyway. We need to respect the power of the undead. Using them recklessly is phenomenally dangerous. If and when we make use of Strabostazno's body, we'll have to be extremely careful. With that excitement out of the way, we're now opening up some new fortress locations. Near the Farmer's Guild Hall, we've finished building a library. We put this off way too long. Some of our dwarves aren't happy about the lack of intellectual opportunities here. For a few months we've been buying some books to fill the bookshelves, and binding quires for writing material, so the place is pretty stocked up. The library seems very popular. Dwarves are reading books about distant human settlements, necromancer towers, and philosophy. We've assigned a scholar who will hopefully start publishing some works himself. We've also just opened up a metalsmithing guild hall called the Boulders of Earth. This guild hall belongs to the Earthen Guild, an association of smiths with 10 members in the fortress. The walls feature engravings of anvils, weapons, and metal bars. There's a forge in the hall as well, where artisan metal crafters can stud our best metal goods with gold, silver, and copper. Our workers now have another place to congregate and practice their skills. Some new fools have come to die in Chantedfins today. The enemy have arrived and are laying siege to the fortress. It's just a few goblins, the smallest siege we've gotten in a while. We can't actually be sure where these attackers are from though. Both the forces of the goblins and the forces of the mummy have sent similar assaults out on us before. We're going to try to make use of our marks dwarves this time. Actually, it looks like the goblins aren't even approaching the wall, so they're well out of crossbow range. We'll just send out 8-foot again. These goblins will be no problem for him. A mason was still on the surface hauling stones around, and is now locked out at the fort. It's getting close to the full moon, too. I think we'll be able to keep 8-foot away from him, though. 8-foot quickly dispatched all the goblins, as predicted. We should still have time to lock him up before he turns. Yes, the mason will live another day. However, a subtler threat is building in the fortress. 3 of our dwarves are stressed, and 1 is haggard. None have thrown any tantrums yet, but it's only a matter of time. These issues are best nipped in the bud. We'll be employing a number of methods to try and tackle this stress problem. We're keeping stressed dwarves underground and out of the blinding sun, keeping them off jobs that involve a lot of hauling, giving them opportunities for creativity, and giving them lots of free time. De-stressing dwarves can be a pretty complex affair, so we'll tweak our approach based on what seems to be working. One of those stressed dwarves is Id, the Necromancer. He was treated for his wounds, but I don't think the doctors were able to do much for him. He's got a lot of infections and can't use his arms or legs properly, he's just crawling around. It's pretty awful, he should probably just be in bed. Unless he recovers over time, I don't know how we could possibly improve his mood. That Gorlak skeleton left him in a pretty sorry state. Actually, it looks like Id's stress is no longer a problem. He's dead. Probably overwhelmed by infection. I guess being a necromancer wasn't enough to keep him alive indefinitely. A shocked and grieving Zasit orders Id's body to the crypt. She's not letting go of her husband that easily. She's in the crypt. There we are. Id has been reanimated. His injuries are just as bad as before, though. Somebody's taking him back to the hospital to see if the doctors can do anything for him. It seems like he has too much motor nerve damage to ever be able to be a productive member of the fort again, though. At least he's no longer plagued by stress. Reanimation leaves a dwarf without emotion. It's hard to imagine how Zasit is taking this. Most people would probably be put off by their spouse turning into an emotionless reanimated corpse, but she is a necromancer, they might be more accepting of that kind of thing. Anyway, to tackle the stress problem, we're also going to work to set up some cooling mist generators throughout the fort. The light aquifer layer directly above the fortress creates some very interesting opportunities for simple waterworks, but digging it all will take a while. Selob the haggard dwarf is now throwing a tantrum in the library. It's sad to see, but how much harm can one dwarf do? He's knocked over a bookshelf, and now he's starting a fistfight with somebody. Whoa! A bunch of other people have joined in. It's turning into a huge brawl. Dozens of dwarves are beating the hell out of each other. People are getting killed. The situation is only escalating. There's not a thing we can do about this except wait and hope for the dwarves to come to their senses. The violence has subsided. 4 dwarves lie dead, and our hospital is overwhelmed with the wounded. I'm stunned that a minor fistfight could have so quickly escalated into a massive fortress-wide melee. Before we consider how to deal with the aggressors, though, we have to try to revive some of these dwarves. Zasit is in the crypt with the bodies. Whoa, that was a close one. All but one of the bodies were turned into mindless zombies, who charged straight at Zasit. They were caught in the cage traps, though, and weren't able to harm anybody. We really need to make this crypt a little safer. One dwarf was raised as a wasting stalker, though. Thakut Iseth Einod, a performer from our tavern. He's not doing so hot. His head, skull, left ankle, and hip are mangled beyond recognition, and his brain is broken. We'll see if the doctors can help him. Actually, Id just left the hospital and is doing a bit better. He's still covered in infections, but the doctors were able to fix up his legs well enough that he can walk around with a cast, and he seems to be able to move his arms decently enough. Id's recovery gives hope that Thakut's condition will improve as well, though the doctors are pretty swamped with patients right now, so they won't be able to give Thakut their full attention. Unfortunately, we don't have time to properly deal with the aftermath of this crisis, because a new one is emerging. The forgotten beast, Sekel Sereklur Iklist O'Newell, has come, an enormous, skinless Dimetrodon. It has wings, and it has a bloated body. Beware, its deadly dust. Between the wings and the dust, this forgotten beast is bad news. We're going to try to seal up the cavern again for now. There we are, the beast is no longer an issue for now. So, how do we respond to the outbreak of violence? Many dwarves were involved in the fighting. However, the most egregious aggressors were the 3 dwarves who directly killed people, resulting in 5 deaths, and Selob, the haggard dwarf who initiated the brawl. By the laws of the mountain home, we need to assign a captain of the guard to dole out punishments. Though, this is an unusual situation. One of the dwarves who was killed in the brawl was Udib Berlolam, our former expedition leader, and priest of the Putrid Doctrines religious order. We haven't seen much of him since he was given the esteemed position of Sacred Filth, but in a sense he was the spiritual leader of the fort. 60% of the fortress worships Tig the Lustful, and a third of those worshippers are members of the Putrid Doctrines. They all listened to his teachings, and I don't think his death will be taken lightly, especially not with Zasit as our mayor. She may not be a member of the same sect of Tig worshippers, but she's certainly an ardent worshipper of Tig the Lustful. We will have justice for Udib's death. Our chief concern is that Udib's killer might be able to get off with a mere disorderly conduct charge by exploiting legal loopholes. Zasit wants justice for the death of the priest. However, she might also have a darker reason for wanting to carry out a more severe sentence. Zasit is very curious, often to her own detriment. This has driven her to keep conducting dangerous necromancy experiments, even when one of them resulted in the death of her husband. A few summary executions under controlled circumstances would result in some fresh, undamaged corpses to continue her work with. But like most dwarves, she does intrinsically value the law. Conflicted about the situation, she assigns a dwarf to lead the captain of the guard, but continues to deliberate on what she'll do if she disagrees with the sentencing. Looks like Zasit's concerns were well founded. The only one who's been convicted of any crimes is Selob, the haggard dwarf. He was sentenced to a beating and 57 days in prison for initiating the fight. The captain of the guard delivers the beating in the middle of the dining hall, and then hauls him off to the prison. But that fighting resulted in 5 deaths. We can't let the murderers escape punishment. With a quiet order, Zasit has 3 dwarves sent to the crypt, and the hatch is locked behind them. No one knows what's happening down there. Over a month later, Zasit enters the crypt, and emerges with 3 wasting stalkers at her side. No one asks any questions. Zasit is the hand of Tig the Lustful. Her wisdom in matters of necromancy is undisputed. Curiously, just as the deed was done, Selob, the haggard dwarf responsible for starting this fight, finally cracked and went berserk, attacking everyone around him. The rest of the dwarves put him down pretty easily. He was just a farmer. Odd timing, though. Tig the Lustful works in mysterious ways. We might as well try resurrecting his body, though it was mangled. The crypt has received some renovations. The bodies will now be held behind a row of fortifications. This should eliminate all risk to the necromancer in most circumstances. Zasit is entering, and Selob has been resurrected as a wasting stalker. It seems like our assumptions about mangled corpses weren't entirely accurate. They can be raised, at least in some circumstances. He's pretty busted up, so he's getting sent to the hospital. I think he's going to recover just fine, though. Both Id, the reanimated necromancer, and the more recently reanimated Thakut are walking around and doing work in the fortress after recovering from their injuries. Thakut's wounds have actually all healed, except for his broken brain. In fact, that curious injury has earned the wasting stalker a nickname, Broken Brain. This recent chain of violence seems to have mostly dealt with our dwarven stress problem, though killing off near all of our stressed dwarves was not our intended treatment. The mist generators are also up and running. However, the output from just aquifer leakage is pretty low. This kind of mist generator is easy to scale up, though. It's just a straight hole up to the aquifer layer, with a drain below. With some work, we can actually cover the fort in so many mist generators that the mist output should end up pretty decent. The only dwarf still stressed now is a mace dwarf named Dodok. He was actually doing just fine earlier, but he was recently locked up in jail for a few months over some production order violation. The jail time did a number on the poor guy. We're taking him out of the military for a bit so he can focus on leisure. Hopefully he'll recover after a bit of civilian life. Though that doesn't mean we're reducing the size of our military. Far from it. As we enter the year 557, we're making some big improvements to our fortress militia. First, we've added most of our wasting stalkers to our Mace Dwarf squad, the Gilded Gears. They're all training on the surface. These soldiers will be our front line against any sieges that attack. Their force magic also has a bit of utility when training up here on the surface. With a single point of the finger, our wasting stalkers can stun any dangerous giant birds that fly over our fortress courtyard, causing the animals to fall out of the sky. These animals can scare civilians and cause stress, so this is pretty helpful. Meanwhile, 8-Foot has been moved to his new Grand Training Hall. This area will give him plenty of space to hone his skills, amidst engraved walls and silver floors befitting such a warrior. With so many wasting stalkers now part of our regular militia, we'll probably save 8-Foot for facing extreme threats in the future. The Marks Dwarf squad, the Heavenly Rings, has been quietly training in their barracks all this time, without a lot of changes to their squad makeup. However, we did get a steel crossbow artifact a while back. Togalaral Bengengashul, Storm Vessels, the Scarlet Realm, worth 78,000. It is decorated with elkbird bone and encircled with bands of square, brilliant cut rock crystals and steel. A distinguished weapon for the captain of our Marks Dwarves. And finally we come to the Pious Blades, made up of 3 spear dwarves, 2 of whom have artifact spears, and 3 axe dwarves. This squad is stationed at the entrance to the depths. They're tasked with defending the fortress from cavern monsters. These dwarves are also the fort's first line of defense against forgotten beasts, a job that requires serious nerve. To help them in their hunts, they've been assigned a great many war dogs. Hopefully the pack of hounds will help overwhelm any cavern creatures that try to attack our soldiers. At the moment we've got the cave sealed up, though we've been hearing some awfully strange noises down there. We don't know what we'll find when we unseal it. We're probably going to have to open up the cavern sooner rather than later. As the dwarves enter the beginning of summer, 557, they finish another stage of the mist generator system. Now our tavern and our busiest intersection are both connected to the aquifer via ducts in the ceiling. This provides a fairly steady stream of cooling mist to soothe our dwarves after coming in from the scorching Chantedfins sun. We are already hard at work digging out new drainage tunnels to further expand the network as well. We've also resumed work on the long-shelved Necromancer Tower project. With the fortress walls finished, we finally have the building materials and labor available to make some real headway on it. Though, since our necromancers are all fully integrated members of the fortress now, we don't need to use it to actually lock them up. We'll have to figure out how to best make use of this spacious new structure. It's now mid-winter 557, a number of months later. Zasit has just raised another body, though it turned into a mindless zombie. The dwarf died falling into the moat. That's just one of the risks we have to deal with when we have dwarves working on the surface. And we've certainly been doing a lot of work topside during the latter half of this year. Our tower grows rapidly. Here on the ground floor, we've moved the trade depot indoors to provide some extra safety for the merchants. We're using the rest of this level mostly as some extra storage space. On the second floor, we've set up a museum. Most of the artifacts we aren't currently using are being stored here. The museum also features some decorated golden statues and a few silver altars. On the third floor, we've set up another temple to Tig the Lustful, called the Church of Lust. Unlike the Fatal Sanctum underground, this temple is open to all Tig worshippers, not just members of one particular religion. In addition to many golden statues of Tig and a number of obsidian and cinnabar altars, we've also set up some cages in the temple, filled with undead dwarves. These are the failed attempts at raising wasting stalkers, the ones who were resurrected as mindless zombies. To the uninitiated, putting our undead citizens on display in the temple might seem rather ghoulish, but to the worshippers of Tig it's quite the honor. What greater privilege could there be than unending communion in Tig's house of worship? In the center, of course, we have the reanimated corpse of Udib Berlolam, former sacred filth of the putrid doctrines. Though his soul is at rest, his body will eternally preach of Tig's glory. Back down on the ground, we've started growing a lot of new surface crops. We're about to dramatically increase the variety of food and drink here in the fortress. Our captive rhinos have also birthed a whole herd of new rhinoceros calves this year.
It will take a very long time for them to grow old enough to be war trainable, but we look forward to the day when we'll have these behemoths defending our fortress. Since we've made so much progress on the surface, I'd say it's time we took back the caves. Somewhere out in the depths is Sikel Sericlur Eclisto Nul, the Forgotten Beast. The creature's wings and its clouds of deadly dust will make this a tough fight. The pious blades are assembling in the Cavern gatehouse. We've added one of our wasting stalkers to the squad. Hopefully he will be able to stun the beast with his magic and create an opening for us to attack. The pious blades are heading in. Sikel is sitting in a cavern mushroom tree. They've reached the creature. Sikel is blasting vast clouds of dust throughout the cave, knocking the dwarves all over the place. We've gotten a few hits in, but our people are all covered in dust. By Tig, the dust causes total paralysis. The soldiers can't even breathe. If the effects don't pass, they're all goners. Melee dwarves might not work at all. We're going to try to send in the heavenly rings. Maybe the Marks dwarves will be able to put down the beast without getting in dusting range. The pious blades are dying one by one. And just when we think this can't get any worse, the Forgotten Beast, I-Stellidozit, has come. A huge, hairy alligator. It has a pair of spindly antennae, and it has a bloated body. Beware its poisonous sting. We're sending down the Gilded Gears. We need our entire military here if we want a chance of taking down 2 forgotten beasts at once. Sikel finishes off the pious blades as reinforcements arrive. We're focusing on defending the Cavern gatehouse. Idash and Sikel are both approaching. Some of the Marks dwarves have charged forward and are getting themselves killed one by Sikel. But Idash reached our soldiers and was quickly put down by the wasting stalkers using their force magic. Maybe we can rush Sikel and take him down the same way. It's working. Sikel is being stunned. The wasting stalkers are finally gaining the upper hand. It's dead, but at such cost. Every dwarf who fought the creature was afflicted by paralysis, and is sure to die, besides the wasting stalkers who don't need to breathe. The paralyzed dwarves lie on the cavern floor, suffocating to death. Near our entire militia wiped out in an instant. The only hope for our soldiers is reanimation. We need to recover those bodies now. We've gotten a lot of the bodies to the crypt, ready to be reanimated. It won't be long until these corpses rot, so we need to start raising them now. This could end up pretty chaotic. They've been raised. Most of them are just mindless zombies, though. We don't have enough cage traps to catch them all. Maybe our remaining wasting stalkers can put them down. Damn it, Zasit has gone back down into the crypt. She's fighting a zombie. She's dead. We need to kill these things now. Our wasting stalkers are here and they're striking down all the corpses. Alright, all the zombies are dead. Now we need to reanimate Zasit. What a mess. Id, ever dutiful, reanimates his late lover. Zasit is quite seriously wounded now. She's being taken back to the hospital. We need time to take stock of our losses. We need time to reorganize our militia. We need time to come up with a new plan for defending our fortress. But we're not going to get it. A vile force of darkness has arrived. Before that devastating beast attack, we would have been able to deal with these raiders easily. We're closing off the moat, but that's not going to be enough this time. This invasion force is completely different from anything we've faced before. They're from the Goblin civilization, the Fell Witch, but there are no goblins here. Many of the attackers are human, but a few are Pillarlove's Fists. Bizarre creatures created by horrible necromantic experimentation on humans. A large one-eyed humanoid. It has thin wings of stretched skin. Its black skin is waxy. They're armed to the teeth, and they can fly right over our moat. We need to retreat underground. Whew. With the surface sealed, we can finally take stock of our— Holy shit, we left the secondary entrance open, and the humans just walked right in. And it gets worse. Id was standing in the mayoral dining room, right next to the secondary entrance. He got the jump on a human bowman and managed to strangle them to death, but then he raised the human's body. Id raised one of the humans as a wasting stalker. That thing is monstrously powerful. On the other side of the door, in the mayoral bedroom, a 4-year-old child is playing make-believe. Lightast Lelorzenegg, son of Zasit and Id. I can't imagine what his upbringing must be like. Let's get him out of here before this tragedy gets any worse. Well, he's safe, though his father is dead. Again. This child has seen so much tragedy. The child's great misfortune has earned him the nickname, Curseborn. The humans are pushing forward and are clashing with some more of our soldiers. But it's done. The human-wasting stalker is dead, along with the rest of the attackers. They ran into one of our dwarven-wasting stalkers, who proved a better fighter. The hallway is absolutely caked in blood, and so many have died. But the fort is finally secure. We won't be mitigating our losses with necromancy this time. With Zasit down and out in the hospital, and our only other necromancer dead, we can't raise any more bodies. Id is well and truly gone for good. Our few remaining Marks dwarves pick off a few of the flying creatures from behind our fortifications, and the rest of the siegers flee from this cursed place. We've been whittled down to 85 dwarves. Our militia consists of only 11 soldiers. 6 of them are wasting stalkers, which does count for something. But it's beginning to seem like all this necromancy is more danger than it's worth. Our mayor, who once led us down Tig's righteous path, is now a husk of her former self. For the first time in the history of Chantedfins, our faith wavers. The fate of the fortress hangs by a thread, and nothing is certain. But it's getting late, and I must retire. Come find me again some other night, and hear more tales of the cursed dwarves of Chantedfins.